There's so much that goes into running a legal psilocybin facilitation and services business. It is a business, and we have to figure out how to keep the lights on and all of that while still maintaining the core ethos of being of service from a heart-centered place, which is it's just such a new path in so many ways.
We live in a pretty fast-paced world. And so psychedelics are a tool for the job of today. And I feel that they're coming into the world now because of, sort of explicitly, because of the problems that the world is facing. So I'm excited to help bring that to more people.
I think I do a decent job, much better than I did before, but of course there's always room for improvement. And so, yeah, I think stepping into partnership with you in this way has just asked of me to step up and really show up and like really try to fully embody my highest expression of wife, mother, and now co-founder and business partner.
But it's not like, oh, this is an opportunity to make money, let's dive in. Like, this is probably not a great opportunity to make money, but it's an opportunity to build something that we, A, enjoy building, and B, feel like we're really useful to people that we build it for.
All right, Mike Townsend, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be with you, as always.
And me to you. So this is the first episode that we are recording on the podcast together, and also the first episode that I am releasing in a while. It's been quite the hiatus. So much has happened since the last podcast episode that I released. And so the intention for this episode is really to not only capture what has unfolded since the last time that I released an episode, but really just to announce, to launch, to birth this new chapter, new season of what it is that we're doing here, that we're co-creating now together. So for those of you who don't know me, who don't know Mike, this is an episode for you to get to know us. And we have a loose agenda plan template, but this is also going to be, totally just a spontaneous interview conversation. So I want to kick things off by first asking you, Mike, to introduce yourself and give kind of like a high-level overview of your journey, maybe, I guess, personally, professionally, whichever direction you want to take it, that leads you to here and now.
Sure. Yeah, I think the like one sentence version would just be started off as a mechanical engineer, ended up as a serial entrepreneur, and then the paragraph would be went to University of Connecticut for engineering, moved to Singapore after for my design project, moved to LA for a aerospace job, and then worked in large defense industry for a couple of years, and realized that wasn't for me. Started going to a co-working space nights and weekends, and then ended up starting a company that we raised some money to build a web-based, like an iPad point of sale software for clothing stores. And my co-founder, his good friend and client, was one of the world's best ammogram, which is like you write and then you can flip it upside down. It's the same.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So they had a company called Red Chapter, and that was kind of how that birthed. And then we raised money. We moved to Austin, and we sold the company to Big Commerce before they IPO'd. They're like a Shopify competitor. And then worked on a couple small projects with my best friend Kyle, and we ended up starting a company called Home Hero, which we ran for 5 years. We raised venture capital. We had a bunch of employees based in Santa Monica, California, connecting families to caregivers for seniors. And through that experience, really got a good understanding of the healthcare system and really developed a passion for it. In particular, the size of it and the way that it's incentivizing people to do more bureaucratic back-end work. It was really clear through that experience. We faced regulatory challenges with California, and we ended up selling the company for far less than we raised in capital. But it was an awesome learning experience, and I still am very close to the people I worked with at the time. And then that parlayed into the next thing, which was we had a team of developers in Argentina, and COVID happened. We had our first kid, and I wanted the flexibility without the pressure of outside investors. So I connected those developers in South America to US tech companies who were all going remote, as everyone was. And it was a kind of a serendipitous timing. I was in the right place at the right time to build that business. And we grew. We had about 6 people on the team. We were connecting developers and doing great work. And it was like this. It was like a massive spike. People looking for really, I'd say like engineering managers looking for software developers, like way up, and then came way down pretty quickly. So it was a combination.
After COVID ended?
Yeah, COVID also had the stimulus money. So there was a lot of venture money going out. Interest rates were extremely low. The government was giving out free money, and everyone was working remote. So we were like just in this perfect position, serendipitously. And so I decided not to raise money and go down that path. I think some companies did, and I would bet probably regret it at this point. Who knows? But it was pretty frothy. And then moving to Portland, where in Oregon, it's the first state to legalize psilocybin use. And I saw this opportunity after doing a big dose of mushrooms with you and your brother, that it came through for me that this is going to become an emergent industry. And there's a big gap in the market with people trying to find the right facilitators and places to do and have these experiences. So I birthed Trelia, which is still alive today, trelia.org, TRELLIA. And you can go and find about 70 facilitators that are active with video profiles. I did about 70 video interviews with the facilitators and edited them and built the site. And you can go on and request them. And it's a good place to connect with facilitators if you're interested and just have no connections. And so then I sort of realized, like, there's 2 things that happened. One is you were running Meadow, and you had your partner and you're growing your business, and I saw the potential in a service center, like doing the actual work. And then I also saw the lack of potential in building the directory, and that directories work when there's a big market. So it was either go and open up therapy. Psychologists were the big sort of obvious market for Trelia. We could say, okay, we're not just going to be psychedelics, we're going to be mental health. So maybe broaden the aperture for the providers that could be on the directory. And I think we could go head to head with psychology today and probably build a good business. Or I could really focus on psychedelic work, and working with you just seemed compelling because I could leave Trelia, the market grows, let's put a pin in it, see where that is. But this opportunity was really exciting. So we flirted with the idea. We did sort of like coaching meetings with you and your partner, Chris. And then, I joined a few weeks ago and built this studio that we're in now, and on to the races.
All right. That was like a few paragraph, very high level overview of yourself professionally. You touched on a little bit of personal things, but to flesh out a little bit more context, again, just with the intention of this episode being just people getting to know us and who we are and why we're here and how we serve and all of that. You and I met in Los Angeles in, the fall of 2015. Wow. And so I was in my first year of residency training. And you had just finished which round of fundraising for Home Hero?
Yeah, probably the B.
Your Series B, and you had raised at that point how much money?
Like $23 million.
Okay. So you were in the thick of, venture capital backed startup with Kyle, with Home Hero, and that's when we crossed paths. And we met and we started dating. And as we started dating, we started having these really incredibly transformative experiences with psychedelics together. And had you explored psychedelics much before we had met?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, maybe, marijuana to the extent, but no, not really. I mean, it was kind of like when we met, and then we had our friend who introduced us to the ayahuasca circles, and I just sat in one before you. But yeah, it was really together.
Well, cannabis, marijuana, not exactly classic psychedelic, can have some psychedelic properties when used intentionally and especially when ingested. But okay, so I hadn't really had a classic psychedelic experience. And then I kind of pin our first experiences together, and we've really been together on this path of exploration with our first, we had an MDMA experience.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I would say is like the first one where I had this experience of reality where my consciousness was clearly altered. I was not in a sober state at all, but it was my first time altering it, not with alcohol or weed. And I was, in the sense that I was quite lucid the whole time. And that's one characteristic that I think is very different with psychedelic experiences. And it was incredible. I mean, MDMA, it was at a concert, it was with our friends. It's like a peak life experience. I highly recommend everybody doing that with their partner, at least once in their life. Be safe, of course, while you're doing it. But I would say that was the first experience. And I remember you've been so instrumental in my journey of exploring my consciousness because, one, you were the first person in my life to even ask me about consciousness. I remember feeling it was kind of annoying. I remember being in the car after a date one time, and you just ask these questions out of left field. It's just part of your personality, and you just asked me one time, like, so what do you think about consciousness? And I was like, I had never pondered it or contemplated it before, and I felt completely, I didn't even have anything to say really, like to contribute to the conversation. I think that's what was annoying to me about it. I was just like more at myself and feeling like, we were new and dating, and I didn't feel like I had anything to contribute. And you had read Waking Up by Sam Harris, and he had the podcast at the time, so you introduced me to that. And this was when I was listening to audiobooks. Like you got me into listening to audiobooks. That wasn't really a thing. And I distinctly remember having the conversation after we had the MDMA experience. I was like, that was incredible. Why wouldn't you do that every weekend whenever you go out? Okay. I mean, there's obvious reasons why you shouldn't, like just safety wise, your system can't really handle that. But you asked this question that still sticks with me today, which is like, or at least pointed out that, hey, that state of consciousness that you experienced, that's accessible to you really at any time. And that was so thought-provoking, and I was very intrigued by that idea. And I was like, wow, yeah, like if you have the ability to experience that, it's not I think the default understanding would be like, well, that was just the drug's effect on me. But there is, with all of these, whether it's MDMA or psychedelics, this quality of lifting the veil of what's possible to experience in terms of a state, and what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's lifting the veil of what's possible, and then with other modalities, not necessarily through a drug, you're able to sort of toggle your nervous system to shift more into maybe not totally 100% like you would if you took 125 milligrams of MDMA, but you have way more agency and control over your nervous system state and therefore your state of consciousness and your experience of reality than I ever knew, than I think most people understand. And it doesn't take taking something exogenous to you to have that experience. And so that, I think, is what catalyzed really, and then we became full-blown psychonauts together in those, it's going on 10 years ago now, where we then had friends who introduced us to ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, eventually LSD, DMT, or 5-MeO DMT, and just went exploring our consciousness together. And then along the way, we're having you recapitulated your professional journey. I went through my 5 years of general orthopedic surgery training, and along the way, had, I think, multiple kind of professional existential moments where I was wondering, I was just so passionate about learning about the power of the mind, and also having a real spiritual awakening for me. So much healing unfolding with the grief related to my father's passing, and also just processing childhood and intergenerational trauma. I grew up in a family with substance abuse and just not the most functional family setting, which I think is the norm for most people, actually. I think having a functional families, a healthy functional families, actually, unfortunately, you're in the minority if you're blessed with that family setting. But I was experiencing so much healing, and also witnessing all of the limitations that modern medicine has in terms of like tools in our toolkit for helping the things that plague our healthcare system the most. And like you said, you tried to innovate within healthcare and just bumped right up against all of the misaligned incentives there are for actually creating a system that leads to health rather than like true health rather than further sick care. And but psychedelics are still illegal. And then we continued on where I applied for fellowship training in Boston. It was always my dream to match and do my training at Boston Children's Hospital and have an experience of what it's like to be educated in the ivory tower, at Harvard University School of Medicine. And so we went to Boston. This was in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. I was pregnant with our first child, with Leo, and that's when Measure 109 passed, legalizing psilocybin therapy in Oregon. And so we were in the midst of a major just life transition. I mean, we had moved across the country from LA to Boston. I was finishing up my last year of training. At the time, I was practicing pediatric orthopedic surgery. This passes. We're both passionate about psychedelics in general. Not sure where things are going to go, but practicalities. I had to find a job. So looked in various places, and then about halfway through that year, when we were in Boston, I'm still looking for jobs. A position opened up in Portland, Oregon, and that's when I heard about it from one of my mentors at Boston Children's, who knew that I was interested in psychedelics, and felt like, oh yeah, Portland would be a great fit for you. And so, interviewed for the job, got it, and we moved we now have our son Leo, so the three of us moved to Portland, and that was when you were working on the business matching developers with various software companies. And I was working doing pediatric orthopedic surgery for the first 2 years that we lived here, thinking, okay, I'm just going to practice for a few years. I was thinking at least maybe 5 years or something like that. But then I enrolled in psilocybin facilitator training, just something to do on the side, my passion project. And then that's when I would say I moved about, almost 2 years into practicing and having gone through, I was just, I think, starting the psilocybin facilitator training when I really had my existential professional, career identity crisis, where I worked with a coach. You encouraged me to work with my friend who worked as a coach with me to sort out all of my emotions around how I was very passionate about psychedelic medicine, psilocybin in particular. And that was where my heart really was pulling me towards wanting to learn more, deepen more, and practice in that capacity. But I had invested so much into becoming a pediatric orthopedic surgeon, I just didn't know what to do. So with your encouragement and support, though, I ended up choosing to go full-time and practicing with psilocybin, just into psychedelic medicine in general, and really fully stepping into that identity as more of a psychedelic medicine doctor rather than specifically the super subspecialized pediatric orthopedic surgeon. And the golden thread that I draw between the path that I was on and now the path that I am on now is still this core passion of this idea of preventative healthcare. That the reason why I was so passionate about pediatric orthopedic surgery, besides it being immediately gratifying in the same way that psilocybin therapy can be immediately gratifying in terms of how you can just within one day change the course of somebody's healing journey. It's also the what I loved about pediatric orthopedic surgery is helping otherwise healthy kids stay healthy. You know, they sustain an injury and then you help them, but then they go on to, you help them to be healthy and physical in the world again. And so much of our well-being is tied to our ability to be physical in our bodies, and our bodies as this interface with reality in the world. And I'm still very passionate about that, just, you know, in terms of physical health, just movement, eating well, nourishment, sleeping well, hydrating, all of those basic foundational things that I infused into my practice before is still a core part of my practice now, except now instead of doing surgery on your musculoskeletal system, I say it's like doing surgery on your mind.
Yeah, I like mind surgery.
Mind surgery.
Yeah. Should really run with that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I draw so many parallels with what we're doing now with running a psilocybin service center to like an ambulatory surgical center where, there's a distinct period of preparation, and then there's the big day of the main intervention. But then most of the work actually happens in the rehab, whether it's physical therapy, occupational therapy, or integration in the world of psychedelics. And so, and that's where you'll really see a difference in outcomes, in the same way that you'll see a huge difference in outcomes after a total knee replacement or an ACL reconstruction or spine surgery. It's all about the work that the patient or the client puts in after the intervention, where they really reap the rewards, and where the real transformation actually happens is in those months afterwards. So I left my practice. It's about a little over like 2.5 years ago now, to work full time. And I was initially just running my own solo practice, seeing clients and facilitating psilocybin experiences for them. It was mostly word of mouth, or a few people found me through my social media. Still very small, but will be about 9 months ago or so is when Chris, whom we're in partnership with the center with, approached me to work with him. And that's when the opportunity to bring my practice to one service center location. I was working out of multiple service centers before, but to really commit and invest into one and steward one space became available. That opportunity with Chris, who has this beautiful center in Southeast Portland. And that's what I did in the fall. And so, and went through a tremendous up and down phase of growth where we merged our previous two businesses together. And then we were working closely together, and changed a lot up in the center and our processes and all of that, and was working really beautifully through to the spring of this year. And that's when for for those people who have been following along my journey, my initial practice was called Eleusia Health. And that was inspired by the Eleusinian Mysteries. If you're curious about it, Brian Murescu wrote a wonderful book called The Immortality Key about the ancient mystery rites in ancient Greece, and where a lot of the roots of Western medicine, find themselves in those mystery rites that I'm very inspired by. But then when I merged with Chris, his company was called Project Circle, and so we then merged together, and in that process rebranded to Meadow. And Meadow really resonated as a name for this new venture that was with Chris, and then now also with you, for many different reasons. One, it's easier to pronounce and spell than, and two, it's weaving in that the element of Mother Nature, which is such a core pillar of what I teach with clients, is the healing power of deepening in our relationship as an interconnected part of the whole of Mother Nature and really just planet Earth. And that feeling of interconnectedness is something, there's a concept called ecodelic or ecodelia, where that seems to be a core facet of specifically journeying with psilocybin mushrooms or any of the more of the earth-based psychedelic medicines, which is that distinct feeling of plugging into an interconnected web of life that is tremendously therapeutic in terms of sitting and helping to cure yourself of the illusion that you're this separate, atomized individual self. And so much suffering comes from that feeling of isolation. But and then we had some transformational experiences in a meadow with mushrooms together along the way. And you've been a core influence for me ever since I stepped onto this more entrepreneurial medicine path after I left my my sort of comfier corporate employed position and stepped out onto my own. But we only came into a formal business partnership after being, we've been together for 10 years, married for 7 of them. So, but now we're stepping into a new partnership, this business partnership together in Meadow. And so as things were growing at Meadow, I feel like that's when you really saw an opportunity. I saw an opportunity for you to really step in and help us grow. And so that happened how long ago? Like a month ago now?
Yeah. July 1st is my official day.
Is that right?
Thursday 11. Yeah.
July 1st was your official first 15th. Day?
Yeah, it's when you guys finalized the paperwork.
Wow. Well, yeah. I guess you've been working with us since.
It was another 2 weeks before that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where we're at with Meadow now. And so Chris is not involved in the day-to-day operations anymore. He has his own business that he's working on still in terms of transitioning its leadership. So that's taking up most of his time day to day. So in the day-to-day operations, Mike has really stepped in to help me. And there's so much that goes into running a legal psilocybin facilitation and services business. It is a business, and we have to figure out how to keep the lights on and all of that while still maintaining the core ethos of being of service from a heart-centered place, which is it's just such a new path in so many ways. I don't feel like we have a whole lot of examples of what that looks like. I studied this idea of like social businesses when I was younger. I was really intrigued by that. This idea that you can have a for-profit business, so a business that is, just financially regenerative and sustainable, and it serves a higher purpose than just profit and a bottom line, but actually is of service and creates a more beautiful world than the one that maybe you inherited. So I think it was Muhammad Yunus who won the Nobel Peace Prize, was a big influence for me in my early 20s. And I read his book, Social Business. And I remember, I know that the roots of this endeavor go back to that. I want to turn it back over to you. First with a question, then maybe we can go back and forth. But what is Meadow to you? What do you hope Meadow can be in the world in terms of an organization, a business, what our mission is, what we're here to do?
It's a good question. I think it's the place that people can rely on to have as safe as possible and productive healing experiences using psychedelics. And so the simpler, the better, I think, in terms of business models. So that's what I think it is. So today it's one location, probably many locations, probably a lot of online content, because there's a lot of value you can deliver to people before and after the actual consuming of the substances. Yeah, and then that's like the trunk of the tree, and then whether it's like courses or CME or multiple medicines or partnering with other, the details are TBD, but that's the high level that gets me excited, because I really believe that it's the most upstream, biggest problem that society faces, like homelessness. Oh, let's build houses. But wait, people are still crazy because they're on drugs. Why are they on drugs? Oh, they have a bad childhood. How do you help from that? And it goes back to the experience that we have with the world around us and the emotional patterns that we live and breathe every day. So I think there's many people working on this in different directions. In particular, the psychological approach of talk therapy can be useful, social work can be useful, meditation practices can be useful, breath work can be useful, Reiki, all these healing modalities, but nothing works as deeply and as quickly as psychedelics for people who are addicted or have substance abuse or recursive negative thoughts that they just can't seem to shake. We live in a pretty fast-paced world. And so psychedelics are a tool for the job of today. And I feel that they're coming into the world now because of, sort of explicitly because of the problems that the world is facing. So I'm excited to help bring that to more people. So now, do I ask you a question? Do I get one in
Sure.
back? Okay.
Yes.
All right, let me look at my notes here. So I would ask you, how has it been working with your husband, and how has your relationship evolved?
How honest should I be?
As raw as possible.
I think it's been how I anticipated. To me, it's. I think this is the part that makes anybody hesitate going into a business partnership with their spouse or their like romantic partner, is the bleeding of the boundaries between. And so, in a lot of ways, it's been a tremendous growth opportunity because we're so emotionally intimate, and like in so many ways, of course, with your intimate partner, you start to have like a merging of your consciousness. And so, and that is dangerous because my inner critic is easily unleashed, I think, on you. And that's what I find to be the most challenging is I'm always in a constant battle with my own inner critic and inner judge, and attempting to make friends with it, and on my own healing journey with that voice. And the most challenging is to not let that bleed out onto you, and to have not constructive criticism and evolve, and just devolving into basically taking my emotional challenges and then just dumping them onto you, which just drains your energy and also distracts us from like what we're here to do. And so I'm just a highly emotional creature and being. And for a long time, I just repressed and suppressed my emotions. And that helped me to get so pretty far in life. And then I also, that as we know, when we repress and suppress, the energy doesn't go away. Yeah, it just festers until it bubbles out in various destructive ways. And so much of my own healing journey with psychedelics has been mostly an emotional healing journey and unlocking my emotional intelligence and really honing the discernment for understanding my emotions and increasing my window of tolerance and adding healthy coping mechanisms and strategies that are more adaptive than what I used to do before. And so I think I do a decent job of that, much better than I did before. But of course, there's always room for improvement. And so, yeah, I think stepping into partnership with you in this way has just asked of me to step up and really show up and like really try to fully embody my highest expression of wife, mother, and now co-founder and business partner, of like how and it's just, that asks a lot of me because I think before you were like my refuge from work, where it's like, oh, work is, I compartmentalized work and work stress is over there. And then when, nights and weekends or whatever, when I'm with you, then I don't think about that stuff. And now it's much more integrated, everything, like, which is what I want. And I'm excited about that, to like not have compartmentalized, like, this is my personal life, this is my professional self, but like really merging and integrating them into one. But it does ask of me to show up. And so I make mistakes literally every day.
Yes, process.
And that's okay. I learned so much in teaching. We have a 5-year-old son too, Leo, who I always say is like one of my greatest teachers. And I find myself when I'm coaching him through his emotions, like, oh my gosh, like I need to hear this. And so, not shaming him when he feels angry or frustrated. And it's like same thing for me. Like if I feel frustrated, which happens literally every day when you're running a business, especially new business in a new gray, legally gray zone, like psychedelic medicines. And so how to channel that frustration productively, how to channel anxiety productively and all that, and not be leaky with my energy with you. And so it's been like any period of growth. And it has, it has been an intense season of growth. I don't know that there's ever not an intense season of growth when you take a growth mindset to life. It's always something, right? Before it was getting into med school, then it was residency, then it was getting into fellowship, then it was having children, and now it's starting a new business. Like there's always something. And so it's all just constraints or catalysts for growth. And I definitely see us stepping into partnership, which feels like a natural evolution. And it's almost like it's not something that we are choosing, but it's like what's being asked of us. And so I'm excited. It's really a dream come true, honestly, all the time. Even in the challenging moments, I think to myself, like, wow, this is actually a dream come true. Like, I love you so much, and you're such a wonderful partner for my growth. That's always like, you always bring out the best in me. And now I get to work with you and learn from you. And we get to have this like this flexibility while we raise young children together too. And so, in many ways, we've been partners. When you get married and have kids and buy a house, like you're in it already, and you're already talking like financial, legal, whatever things.
You're like waist deep. You might as well jump.
Yeah, it's like we already do all these things together. So it's we already manage a house together, and that and kids together. So it just feels like kind of natural that we do this, and I think we work well together in terms of complementing each other and divvying up tasks. And we always find a flow, even if there's like a period of, the storming, where you're trying to figure things out. But overall, I feel like I wouldn't want to have it any other way.
Nice.
What about you?
How has it evolved? Let me see what
You asked how
asked.
it's been like working with your
Right. Yeah. How's it been
spouse.
working? I think everything you said is right for sure. I mean, I love it. It's definitely challenging at times, but also I really love what we're doing. I mean, it's not like I was almost going to use the example of a pizza restaurant, but but pizza is also great. So I don't know. But it's not like, oh, this is an opportunity to make money. Let's dive in. Like this is not probably not a great opportunity to make money, but it's an opportunity to build something that we A, enjoy building, and B, feel like we're really useful to people that we build it for. And then it's also really intellectually interesting. Like it's not go and be an artist, but it's not super far from it because I'm also really interested in consciousness and exploring that through psychedelics, but also through meditation and reading about the history of it. And I just think it's endlessly fascinating. And you do too, which is why I love working on this with you because we get to do these podcasts. And so much of it is the enjoyment. Like if it's not rewarding, if the reward is not in and of itself the practice of building the business and it's for something else later, you either need to like recalibrate that or change what you're doing. And so I really have enjoyed the process. It's the challenging parts are short-lived and they're always communication related. And it's always something that we like, okay, yeah, that's right. Let's learn from that and grow from that. But structurally, it's like really exciting. And it's evolved from, we used to have conversations, mostly about work in the evenings. But with kids, you sort of can't. They're like, they are
There's
natural,
no conversation in the evenings.
It's like they start screaming or like, coming over and...
Mommy, daddy,
yeah, exactly.
daddy.
So it's really, there's no like, it really bleeds. We rarely have that problem, which is thanks to the kids. Like it ends when we take them over.
Oh, you mean work bleeding into our personal
Right,
life?
because if you didn't imagine, like, okay, 5 o'clock comes, 6 o'clock comes,
You just work
keep
around
the conversation
the clock,
going,
yeah,
right? But
yeah.
like now that doesn't happen. So my mind really shifts whenever they're around. But yeah, I think finding the right groove like this podcast, our daily check-ins. I think that's been really, really useful for having like structure and routine baked in that has elements of connection. So setting a word of intention for the week, doing a meditation together for a few minutes before, like having those not just be super business oriented, but having routine, intimacy in like a conscious way baked into the process, which you could, we did with my old team remotely. We would play a game for 10 minutes online. We'd meditate. We'd set words in different days and things. And that's awesome for like team building, even when you're in a small team. Yeah. So I love it. Do you have a question? Do you want me to ask you another one?
You can go.
Okay. So next question I have for you is, what are you reading now and how is it inspiring your imagination?
I like to tandem or parallel read. This is a concept from, I think I heard about it first from Naval Ravikant. And I used to just try to read a book and like push through it, finish it before I let myself read another one. But now I will pick up different things. So I usually have a book on my nightstand I like to read before falling asleep in bed. Do not look on your phone right before you try to go to sleep in bed. I sleep with my phone outside the bedroom and read a book. So that one I'm reading is called Womb Awakening. And it's an esoteric, sort of feminine, I just kind of started it, but like feminine wisdom book. About what's available with working with the womb. And I feel like ever since I took myself off of birth control, and that was its own whole journey and like its own detox process. And that in a way that I think helps me really empathize with our clients who are detoxing off of antidepressants and SSRIs because of the systemic nature of it and how, when you mess with your hormones or your serotonin, it impacts every organ system in your body. But ever since I went through that process, and psychedelics are a huge part of that healing and healing my fertility and then having these children, I've been fascinated with the intelligence that emerges bottom up that counteracts our top-down predictive processing with our brain. And so much of what I witness clients moving through and healing with psychedelics is that awakening of a more somatic intelligence. And especially in the age of AI, I think that as more of our raw cognitive knowledge-based horsepower kind of gets, subsumed by the almighty algorithm, LLM algorithms. I really do believe that leveraging what uniquely is available via human intelligence in our embodied existence is just a fascinating avenue. So that's what I'm reading, and it's and our womb is the seat of our creative energy, energetically, our creativity. And so
what is a womb? Like when you think of it, when you say womb, is it?
Well, whether you're male or female bodied, you have like a womb it's like the dantian in China, traditional Chinese medicine, but it's that energy center that's deep, below. We have kind of our heady intelligence that we're oftentimes embodied in our heads. We have a heart intelligence, I have a gut intelligence, and then there's that womb-like intelligence. So there's sensations that arise from there. I mean, a lot of our eros and sacral energy center. That's kind of what I think of in terms of womb. Obviously, in women, female bodies, there's the actual womb organs, the uterus and the.
Is a womb a medical term? Like, would you ever say? You'd say uterus, right? You wouldn't say womb.
Uterus is probably the anatomical term, or medical term for it. That's the anatomical equivalent, but it's more of an energetic, the womb. So, and there's all sorts of esoteric when you look at esoteric history with the womb, and if you look at our ancient spiritual practices for humans, it was much more centered around the womb and fertility because that's just the center of creativity if you think about it in terms of birthing new life and new consciousness onto the planet for so many species. So that's part of what I'm reading. And then I also read when I'm in the sauna. And I'm reading some poetry. This is what I read in the morning. I'm so much of my analytical mind for a lot of the day. I think I like it, whether it's looking at a spreadsheet or talking about automations, email automations, something like that. I love starting my day with a little bit of poetry. It just brings me into my heart space. And so I'm reading I think it's called Gita Jolly. I'm butchering it. It's Rabindranath Tagore's poetry. He is a Bengali poet, won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913, the first non-Western, I think non-European maybe, to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. And it's just a book of his poems. So I read a little bit of poetry in the sauna. That also is, I think, super helpful for dropping into heart space and allowing that to be something that I carry into the day.
Love that. Do you want me to go further? Do you want to cap it here? What do you want to do now?
How long have we been going for?
About 50 minutes, I think.
I like an hour for these.
Yeah, let's do a couple more. Yeah, some good questions. What advice do you have for students just starting off in medical school? Or if you want to take that a different direction, I have 3 questions. You can take either of these. Students starting in medical school, residents starting in residency, or doctors daydream about starting a business.
I'll take the last one.
Okay.
If you're already daydreaming about starting your own business, is a sign that you probably should. I think if the seed's already been planted and it's a dream of yours, that won't go away. It's something to listen to, the whispers of that. And you will find all sorts of reasons you can rationalize for why you shouldn't do it. And for me, what really was a catalyzing factor to take the leap away from my cushy paycheck to starting my own thing was this idea of being on my deathbed and looking like as an old lady, if I'm so fortunate to be an old lady when I die, and looking back on my life. And one of the most common, if you talk to people who are actually like in that stage of life, one of the most common refrains you'll come across is like the regret of not taking the leap, or, you know,
the rocking chair test.
Yes, the rocking chair test. That's what I couldn't think of, the cute little phrase for it. But yeah, the rocking chair test. And yeah, for me, I mean, I've always envisioned for my life in terms of my career, professional life, or just life in general, a very varied career. Like I never saw myself doing one thing for my whole life. So, yeah, it really is like when the opportunity arises, just in timing, it really is a leap of faith. And so the question was like, what's advice I have for doctors who are daydreaming about their own thing? Is just follow your heart. and tuning in with your heart, like what's really motivating you, is going to be the thing that actually carries you through all of the challenges that come with striking out on your own. And so it's so important to get really clear there and tuning in with your heart as you follow your heart. And so, yeah, that's my biggest piece of advice.
Love it. Okay. How about this one? How should psilocybin and other psychedelics be integrated into mainstream healthcare in the long run? How does this look?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this. It's interesting because I am in talks right now with the local healthcare system here, Providence. There's a group, the neuro-oncologists who help people with brain cancer and brain tumors are interested in what we're doing here. And so exploring some sort of partnership there. And I view psychedelic medicines as just being another tool in the toolkit, or another teacher among many teachers, another modality among many modalities. And so I've heard actually many psychiatrists say that they envision psychedelic medicines being actually the first line of treatment for various mental health conditions, rather than what's the standard of care right now. It's what you mentioned, talk therapy and antidepressants, various pharmaceuticals, whether it's antidepressants, SSRIs, SNRIs, atypical antidepressants, antipsychotics, that sort of thing, mood stabilizers. And psychedelics represent just a whole new paradigm of understanding the human psyche as being this adaptable neuroplastic thing that can adapt and heal and grow, and rather than just medicating symptoms away and just trying to slap a Band-Aid on, it's actually leveraging whatever has occurred in one's life to spur on those what we call symptoms, and actually asking, like, what are these symptoms pointing us to? In the same way that pain is a signal. If you put your hand on a hot stove, you don't want to just cut off the pain signal because you continue to burn your hand. The pain is a signal to do something, to move your hand away from the thing that's causing the pain. And in the same way, I think my core belief is that many of us who struggle in terms of like our mental well-being, our mental health, it's oftentimes because of either intergenerational trauma, childhood trauma, adverse childhood experiences, or just adverse experiences in life. Or it's, for a lot of people, just existential anxiety. You might have had an otherwise, Alan Wallace was talking about this as a great meditation teacher, about how he had a really lovely upbringing and didn't want for anything in life. And yet he, in his early 20s, felt this profound existential angst. And so that which set him on a path of, exploring meditation and investigating the nature of mind and understanding what is well-being and what is a healthy mind. And so that's sort of my stance, and my core belief is that whenever we're experiencing any kind of depressive, anxious, chronic PTSD-like symptoms, it's just our system's way of alerting us to where there is healing to be experienced and a coming to wholeness, and that's a process. And we can help leverage that innate healing journey desire with medicines that help catalyze further growth, which is how I think of psychedelics. Or we can just, suppress and repress those symptoms. And so obviously I'm in favor of healing, and that's what, if nothing else, psychedelics from just a raw neuroscience level help to shake the snow globe, as the metaphor goes. It's just to help us to loosen the rigid mental construction of reality, the core beliefs, the limiting beliefs, the identities, the thought processes, the patterns, the emotional patterns that have become ingrained and that are maladaptive, and allow us to loosen all of that, and then to intentionally reprogram ourselves with the beliefs, the identities, the thought patterns that are more conducive to well-being, that help us to adapt. And so, I see it as evolving as it'll be really interesting. For right now, it's evolving, psychedelic medicine is evolving as a parallel system to the conventional healthcare system. And so just because of the legal gray structure, gray zone that psychedelics inhabit right now, I think that's going to really change. We have, RFK Jr. and, our health secretary, and then Marty Makary, who's head of the FDA now, saying that they have identified psychedelics as being just an important therapeutic modality to accelerate the legalization of. And so they're talking about legalizing the next 12 months that's one of their core initiatives. And so once they become legalized, I think that, we start to open up the medical model, not just a parallel system like we have here in Oregon or at the state level. So it'll be really interesting. I'm not quite sure how it evolves, but the space, I do think that the space will look dramatically different than what we see in most clinical spaces now. And so I think there's going to be a huge learning opportunity and challenge to help conventional healthcare professionals come up to speed with all of this. And I'm obviously a huge proponent of doctors and other healthcare professionals having their own experiences with these medicines, because there's only so much theoretical learning you can do. The experiential learning is what's going to help you really understand how these medicines work, and so that we can deliver this care to more people.
Last question. What pieces of content or topics are you excited to share next coming up on your social media?
I'm really excited to talk more about the work that Robin Carhart Harris does. So he's a leading psychedelic scientist, researcher, he was at Imperial College of London. Now he's at UCSF. And I think he's releasing a book coming up on consciousness and psychedelics. But he's done a lot of work with more of a theoretical framework for understanding how psychedelics work in a therapeutic capacity. So he has he popularized a conceptual framework called REBUS, Relaxed Beliefs Under Psychedelics. So that's part of how psychedelics help our therapeutic. They relax our beliefs. So if we have a core belief about ourselves that like I am not worthy, I am bad, I am not safe, whatever. We can relax those beliefs and then install, and encourage new beliefs. And then also he has another model called the entropic brain, model. So if you look at what psychedelics do with functional MRI and that's an EEG and these sorts of, lenses that we can look at what's happening in a psychedelic journey. At the most abstract or fundamental level, psychedelics increase entropy, it has a pejorative connotation, this idea of disorder, but it disorders or like makes less rigid our normal neural patterns, neural pathways. So certain neural regions that are normally not connected become connected, and so there's more interconnectivity, and there's also just more dynamism in the system, and so that's a really rigorous explanation from a neuroscience perspective of what psychedelics are doing in our brain and throughout our nervous system that helped to explain how psychedelics might be working. So one of the things I'm most passionate about is taking more complex ideas and distilling them down, simplifying them, and then making them a little bit more digestible to a lay audience. And so, that's some of the content that I'm working on next. So I do release that via little bite-sized pieces on whether it's on Instagram or a little bit longer on YouTube. So those are the things I'm looking forward to releasing coming up.
Sweet. All right, it's a wrap. Right? Anything else? Any last ideas?
What are you most excited to be working on next?
I always think about the process. At the center, getting more people in here is like probably more facilitation journeys, getting the space up and really like humming, like with a real beat to it. Like this morning I set up the podcast studio and I plugged it in the wrong holes because it's been a little while since I've set it up. So like just having things well oiled is the biggest thing. And then creating this podcast under the Meadow brand. And having the Meadow Instagram and the Meadow X account and having that have a heartbeat is, I think, really exciting because then I'll start to take a driver's seat on interviewing other guests that I'm interested in. Maybe Alan Wallace or other people that are talking about consciousness and psychedelics.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be cool, be like complementing your style and your interests.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to start releasing your own.
And I've run a podcast, 500 episodes of Around the Coin, so...
Yeah, you have a long podcast hosting history. Yeah. Yes. And so, it'll be, I'm excited for you to start releasing some episodes as well and having your DNA and expression really wrapped into, the identity of this organization. So, and I'm excited to see who it attracts into our field and until next episode.
Awesome. Peace.